Hey, what's up, everybody? It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. I have not made a video in over a week and a half, and a lot has happened. So I'll just give you the best I can with the little bit of time I have, because it's just a lunch break, of course, and I will be heading back to work very soon. So, the biggest news in our world, obviously, is Anthony Davis signing on for 5 years, $190 million, and LeBron James getting an extension. I believe that was for $85 million for 2 years. I believe it's the extension. We won. We won. We won the trade. We won the championship. We won life. This is the biggest news the Lakers have had. Good news that the Lakers have had outside of the championship in a very long time. The whole purpose of what we were doing, trading away all the kids, is to give ourselves a chance to get AD to re-sign. We were hoping that maybe we win the championship and that would do it. It did. And I am here to say that I was dead wrong about the trade. And that is officially the case as of him signing that contract. It wasn't going to be a great deal if he left. Now, we won the championship, so it would have been a good deal. We live with that. But if he would have left, that would have been horrible. But everybody did what they were supposed to do. Obviously, the season panned out in such a way that even more so reinforced his Lakerdom, so to speak. And we got him for 5 more. It's a beautiful thing. I didn't expect him to sign for more than two maybe third-year option type thing. But it worked out. It worked out. I'm so happy. So that's the first thing. Not really a whole lot to say there. Those guys are back, and they're back for a while. Now, the big news that I wanted to get on here and talk about was Russell Westbrook being traded. I'm a little late. I should have made a video on this yesterday, the day before yesterday when the deal happened, but I was busy. I'm ready now. Russell Westbrook to the Wizards is intriguing to me, but not nearly as intriguing as John Wall to the Rockets. And I'll tell you why. Because one of the problems that Russell Westbrook had was that he's a volume scorer who, although can average a big number of assists and does average a big number of assists, the pass in his game is pretty much secondary to his scoring and his driving ability. John Wall, that's not the case. John Wall, and I know a lot of people look at John Wall and they don't see this, but John Wall is a pass-first player. John Wall, as gifted as he is as a runner, because he's one of the fastest runners of all time, in my opinion, simply at foot speed from one end of the court to the next, you're not going to find 5 people faster than him in the history of the sport. Okay? That's the first thing. Now, his leg injuries, unfortunately, all his injuries are in his legs. So, you don't know what John Wall you're going to get. But what you do know is if he's able to give you even half of what he was, he's still fast enough to keep up in this league. He's that fast of a player. And he's a fantastic ball handler, and he's a fantastic passer of the basketball. So, even though I don't think his explosiveness is still going to be there, what he's not going to do is take away opportunities from James Harden and or need James Harden to give up opportunities to get the most out of him. There's the difference between him and Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook needed to sacrifice in order for him, for the Rockets to go well. They would need to take turns. It's a give and take. It's, my turn, your turn, that kind of thing. We're going to try to make this work. John Wall doesn't have that problem at all. John Wall is the type of player who doesn't mind if the guy next to him is scoring 40 points a game. Here's the problem. Health-wise, you don't know what he's going to get out of John Wall. And you got to see what happens with the James Harden situation. He obviously still wants out. This is not going to make him stay there. So you still got issues in Houston. But what I will say is, I like what Houston's doing in terms of setting themselves up to have a future after James Harden. They got out from underneath that Westbrook contract. And even though they bring in John Wall, they also brought in a pick, for which they didn't have any of. From what I understand, they didn't have a whole lot of picks. So this brings them a first rounder. And you just keep John Wall. Push come to shove, you just run him out there. Whatever he gives you, you got. You know what I mean? Because either way, you're going to be stuck with an awful contract. You weren't going to be able to unload Westbrook without taking back something horrible. So you get back a pick. Now you essentially say, well, I got a player that, even though he's injured as hell, if he's right, he's a better fit for what I already have. And I got picked. So that's fine. Washington, on the other hand, Washington situation is weird because of everything I just said. He's going to be taken away from Bradley Beal, in theory. Westbrook and Bradley Beal could work better because Bradley Beal doesn't need to dribble as much as Harden did. So maybe Bradley can kind of play a little better off the ball than Harden would have necessarily. But if Russell Westbrook is bricking all the time, you got to understand Bradley Beal's been playing by himself for the last 2 years, more or less. He didn't even have John Wall to deal with. And when he did have John Wall to deal with, what I understand, they weren't the best of friends and they didn't fit as seamlessly as one would think. So Bradley Beal's going to have to share the stage with somebody that's more selfish than John Wall. Probably going to brick a lot more than John Wall. And unlike John Wall, is going to be down there to take things away from him. So that's not good. Then the Wizards also have this high-level rookie that they just picked up, who fell in the draft, in my opinion, simply because they didn't have a whole lot of sample size to look at. Not necessarily because of anything that he did to drop his draft stock. Denny Adivija could have been a top 3 pick in the draft on a lot of people's draft boards. He fell to them at, I believe, 8 or something like that, in that range. And they got a steal. But he's also the type of player that puts the ball on the floor and dribbles a little bit and kind of does this thing. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fits with Russell Westbrook. But I like what the Wizards have overall, based on players that they had previously getting better, getting out from under the John Wall contract and bringing in a player that can actually go, who's not going to be, in theory, at risk for injury this coming season. A Hall of Fame player who's going to come roaring out of the Western Conference, having been used to playing the West. Now is going to get his taste in the Eastern Conference, which is going to give him opportunities to run up his stats like crazy. I expect Russell Westbrook to bounce back. If he doesn't have an injury year, this is an all-star year for him. In the Eastern Conference, you telling me that he gets to play against Orlando 4 times a year? He gets to play against Charlotte 4 times a year? He gets to play against the Knicks 4 times? Like, I expect a very, very, very serious resurgence out of Russell Westbrook. The Russell Westbrook we saw for the last 2 years is not the Russell Westbrook I expect to see. He's going to be a little closer to a poor man's OKC Westbrook. Poor man's. He could average a triple-double again this year. Remember, you heard it here first. Russell's back. He's back. The problem with him being back is you still expect him to miss the same shots. He's not going to be more efficient at all. He's going to continue to brick mid-range shots. He's going to continue to brick three-point shots. And it's going to be a headache. But in the Eastern Conference, I think he's going to be much less of a headache than it would have been at another year in Houston. So, all things considered, it's actually a good trade for both teams. For everything that I just said. I really don't hate the trade. I hate the contracts that both of those players have. And the only option they really had was to trade it for each other. So it was kind of one of those things that you always knew was an option, and eventually the two teams would have to cave. So, to be honest with you, it's kind of what we thought would happen. But I didn't think Westbrook would land in Washington. I thought maybe they'd bring in a third team and maybe send him elsewhere, and then Washington would take back salary in another way or something, but that's not how it went. They traded the two players for each other, and now those two contracts are in different places. Probably, arguably better places. Because John Wall, if he was coming back to Washington, Wizards fans are used to John Wall being a certain way. He's coming back from two knee injuries and one Achilles injury. He wasn't coming back being the John Wall they used to him being. And I think that could kind of suck. You know, for him, for his legacy in Washington, etc. You would rather him go somewhere like Houston. All things considered, being in the Western Conference, they didn't watch him that much. If you're from the West, you don't watch East that much. If you're from the East, you probably don't watch the West that much. So they don't know him that well. They don't expect anything particular out of him, and they understand him to be hurt, so they'll temper their expectations accordingly. It's not like they're expecting John Wall to come back John Wall. Washington has an understanding of who they believe he should have always, who he's always been, and they would expect him to come back that way. I just don't think that he will. He's definitely going to be a couple steps slower. That's just the type of injuries he has, that's just what you're expecting. So tempered expectations, having him come into the Western Conference. Expectations are lower. And they got some nice pieces in Houston. They picked up Boogie Cousins. He's reunited with his boy Boogie. They ain't played together since college. So that's a big deal if they both healthy, which neither are. But, you know, it's good to see them back together. They picked up Christian Wood, who I think is going to be the focal point of the Houston Rockets next year. And, of course, John Wall is somebody who's going to get him the ball. So that acquisition is looking even better now that they've made this trade. So for a rookie GM with a rookie coach, I like what they've done. I got to give Houston their credit. Their situations isn't ideal. But what they've had to deal with, new GM, new coach, new everything, players wanting out, they've done a fantastic job putting themselves in a position to have a competitive basketball team this season. So, shout out to the Houston Rockets for making something out of nothing. And shout out to the Washington Wizards. I look forward to seeing what you guys put together next year. Denny Advija, like I said, that's somebody who I think could be a Rookie of the Year candidate. And I don't know that Russell Westbrook helps that, unfortunately. In fact, I think he hurts Danny's production in theory. But, hey, I'm open to being wrong. At any rate, looking forward to those two teams, and I thank you guys for watching my video. My name is BDF44, and I'm out.